Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we actually have some pretty big issues going on over here when it comes to the unsustainability of the future of the gaming industry. Now, as you guys probably know, we've been seeing some big leaks that came out. I'm going to highlight those as of right now, but we've also had some pretty big higher-ups, such as even Phil Spencer, the head honcho of Xbox, kind of go and talk and bring up this discussion on how gaming as a whole is, well, kind of hitting that unsustainable mark. Now, we can kind of go and relate this towards other various things in the entire universe when it comes to even like the US economy. When it comes to things such as a Mr. Beast video where at a certain point you can't just be dropping like $50 million per video because it just is not necessarily worthwhile. And of course as well also comes to games where at a certain point sometimes spending like $300 million to go make one individual video game gets to the point where it's becoming somewhat on the ridiculous level. And now what happens at a certain point when that $300 million doesn't go into $400 million, or at a certain point that $1.5 billion in the future doesn't actually go and equate to that same amount of money? Well, what's going to happen then when it comes to AAA games? Who is going to try to go and enter the market? And at a certain point, it actually does become an unsustainable business practice. So I want to go and talk about this, talk about the drama, and as well, kind of highlight some of the most recent stuff that came out as these past few weeks, and as well, even the past few days of the Insomniac leaks that kind of show that this is something we shall be worried about. So make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We have the Twitter and Twitch stream as well for those bonus giveaway entries for a $500 or a PlayStation 5 some giveaway. We'll probably live up on Twitch right this second, so go swing on by. And of course, I appreciate y'all so much for watching here in the first place. So, if you guys have kind of missed it, there's some really big highlight stuff that I want to go showcase on over here, where as of right now with the Insomniac leak, which I still feel very bad that even happened over here, is when it comes to this. We see this. We see all this information. We see all the vibes, and it's very sad to see, because as of right this second, there's been a big graphic where this basically set all these various X-Men games to go and launch throughout the 2035 and sell through at least 2038 as well, and also a possibility for it to keep on going in case they would like. And of course, when it comes to all these big games, each of these X-Men games that have been kind of proven on and discussed about also have a development budget of around $120 million, as well as also that's just for the development of the game itself. That could definitely go a little bit more, a little bit lower, but as well as also a $30 million for marketing and also $9 million for recoupable advances when it comes to all the products themselves. So even just by looking at this various one stale game, there's also, I believe there's supposed to be 3 of them planned. That means that there's over a $350 million budget that is meant for all this, if you include all the fees and additional like recoupable advances. And that is astronomical. That is a lot of money. And that alone is pretty much the premise of this video and premise of what people have been talking about. Because as of right this second, people are scared, saying the Insomniac hat has exposed how unsustainable AAA game development is. I am no longer surprised that many developers have lost their job in 2023, and that also kind of goes to almost every big studio. We've seen stuff when it comes to Insomniac and other PlayStation studios that might be getting laid off in the very near future. We're also seeing other various statements too as well when it comes to, like, look at Microsoft that actually do over 10,000 people being laid off. We even, as of today, even saw a pretty big indie game studio have to go and cut their entire funding. We've seen various different publishers go and lay off folks, and as well, how do you kind of save money? You more so have to cut down on development cost. Less 3D modelers, less voice actors, less people in the actual overall design teams, whatever it might be, you basically go and turn it down at least a decent amount. And this is what makes things scary, because we're saying this must be changes in some AAA studios have to find ways to cut costs or they have to go out of business. This also goes and ties into as well with the Bungie, where Bungie themselves have had to go and cut and lay off many different folks on their apartments, which have actually made the game worse. And because of them having to go and try to maintain this unsustainable business practice, they essentially had to go cut people that were on like the security team, which ever since then we've actually been seeing trials and other PvP game modes in Destiny 2, like the PvP modes, actually having a lot more extra issues, mainly stating that they're going to have a lot more hackers and people brute forcing the systems because they don't even have the necessary funding to go and deal with the games they want to make. And that kind of goes into these really big developer cost price points. And as well, when it comes to Insomniac, this is a very expensive double whammy. Where number one, the games, they said you had to go and sell over 6 million units. So basically saying they can terminate this contract between Marvel if any of the X-Men games do not sell at least 6 million units between PlayStation 5 and PC in their first year. If Sony Insomniac terminate the agreement, they will have to pay Marvel $9 million in unpaid portions of all their guarantees. If Marvel terminates, the fees will be waived, and Insomniac can continue to sell whatever games they've also released to as well. So not alone on the fact that it costs that much extra money to go and make these games and sell these games, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's only for one ongoing game. This isn't like just the only games they're selling. Don't forget there's the God of Wars, the Horizons, anything that Naughty Dog might be cooking on up. And there's also a third-party game that might also be factored on into this too as well. And also don't forget about other various things such as, say, Blade, or other various big games such as Starfield, or even look at how much money GTA 6 is costing. Now, GTA 6 is that really big rarity where it most likely will make that money back, and there's a standard they have to uphold, but spending billions of dollars in any industry is a very, very risky thing, to the point where how many other companies can even go and compete with GTA 6, for example? Not many. Not many at all, and even then, if they could, a lot of shareholders, stockholders, and executives would be very, very concerned on how they spend that money. And also seeing on how some of these games, let's say for Ratchet and Clank, that just recently had information that came out that said that it cost around, like, let's say $80 million to go and make, and it still lost $8 million on their game itself, and that was a big first-party game that I'm sure a lot of you guys even watching this video knew about as well. And this is why things get difficult. This is why things get hard, because it's unsustainable. Now, Microsoft kind of has their own various other things where they're saying that Microsoft spends more than $1 billion per year to bring third-party games to Xbox, saying we have a service that is financially viable, meaning it makes money. In Game Pass, we've also put that money in the market, over $1 billion a year supporting third-party games, which at the end of the day, it might sound crazy, but actually might be a better alternative. Do you want to be Sony dropping, well, a potential risk factor, let's go and say Ratchet and Clank, and spend that $100 million to maybe make more? Well, you might, or you might not. Or think Spider-Man, where you still have to spend a lot of money to make it, and while that has made more money, sometimes things like The Last of Us multiplayer that just came out as of per recently that it's now been canceled, well, guess what? They already spent money on that game. Right now, that game is a big multi-million-dollar loss because you have to pay salaries, obviously, et cetera, and that's what makes things a lot more difficult, because Phil Spencer might be right. Phil Spencer usually has a pretty good say in the gaming sphere and gaming ecosystem, and as of right this second, if you could go and spend, let's say, $50 million to have it on your platform almost exclusively with Game Pass, versus spending, let's say, $200 million on making the game. Think more about like the bigger games, such as like a Hogwarts Legacy or even Payday, etc. Like all these various mid-tier games that are not necessarily console specific, but they're also big things to know. Now, you can't only do that, obviously, like something like Blade. If that's going to be an Xbox exclusive purely for Xbox, that's very good. But at the same exact time, sometimes if you can wing it on Game Pass, it might be worth it at the end of the day, and also put a lot of pressure on PlayStation for their own PlayStation Plus service. But at the same exact time, it does seem like these are all unsustainable. A lot of these comments out here are nuts, and I think this pretty much puts the gaming industry to the point where we're in trouble. Like a lot of people are in trouble, saying the AAA games are in big trouble. The Xbox leaks have provided a rare look at the fears and ambitions of these highest levels, and these are the top tier games too as well. Because Phil Spencer did go and saying that Spencer summarized how the shift to digital storefronts caught major game publishers flat-footed, and says that these publishers have continued to fail to adapt, as well as also made a big comment too, stating that a lot of these things are very, 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 very expensive. Now, when it comes to these things, like I said, dropping millions of dollars, saying the AAA publishers have tried to use production scale as their new moat. Very few companies can afford to spend the $200 million in Activision or Take-Two spend to put titles like Call of Duty or Red Dead Redemption on the shelf. These AAA publishers have mostly used this production scale to keep their top franchises in the top-selling games each year, which is basically, it's good. Like, if you can somehow keep on pushing, and you can somehow keep on making games that are like GTA 6 that almost no other game company can compete with, you're going to get market share. You're going to get people playing the game, and it's going to be good. But there's a certain point where what happens if GTA 7 costs $5 billion to make, and then at some point they only make $3 billion. Now, I think that's very unlucky for a game like GTA, but you have to factor in how there's all these other games that might be doing the same exact thing. We see game studios going out of business all the time as of right this second, and it does almost kind of seem like the gaming universe is on the somewhat huge side, overinflated, spending way too much money, and at the same exact time seeing a very, very well-reviewed, well-sought-after, and in my opinion, somewhat pretty decently sold game such as Ratchet and Clank selling so poorly and losing millions of dollars is a very scary thing to go and see. Because imagine you make that same exact game and it was even worse, then guess what? That can maybe potentially make a studio lose over $10 million plus and completely shut them down. Let alone the big issues that Destiny 2 and Bungie have had as of per recently, having to do massive layoffs, completely change the trajectory of their game and even once again front load their games with microtransactions, which would also go and lessen the player base for a very short-term gain for a long-term pain. So there's a lot of big issues going on over here, and we don't necessarily really know the fix for it. Maybe more AA, maybe more indie, maybe just having to go and keep on rolling with it, or that's where the industry goes and takes us. We'll have to go and see. So give me your thoughts and comments on this all down below. Make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We have the Twitter and Twitch link down below if you guys want those giveaway links and also bonus entries. And of course, swing by the Twitch if you guys are bored. We're live right now, and I appreciate y'all so much for watching here in the first place.